There is a massive lie, a whisper that echoes from the skyscrapers of Manhattan to the suburban streets of the Midwest. It sounds sweet, comforting. Study hard, work a 9 to 5, save every penny. They promised you the house with the white picket fence, the car, the financial freedom. That was the social contract of the 20th century. A promise that merit was the only currency that mattered. But can you feel it? That sinking realization that you are sprinting on a treadmill, and someone just cranked the speed to a level you can't maintain. Your effort increases at a crawl, but the cost of the finish line, of actual ownership, is accelerating at light speed. You are working more hours than your parents ever did, yet the dream of owning a piece of this world is slipping through your fingers. This isn't just a bad feeling. It isn't bad luck. It is cold, hard mathematics. Welcome to the Invisible Driver, the place for truth society doesn't want you to know. We were all raised on the same bedtime story. They told us that the United States is a grand arena where the hardest workers always stand on the podium. They called it meritocracy. The idea is simple. If you have the talent and you put in the hours, the system will reward you with a seat at the table. But look around. In today's America, that table is being bolted to the floor, in a room you can't even enter. The matrix of meritocracy is the belief that your labor is a ladder. But for most, that ladder is leaning against a glass ceiling that hasn't cracked in 40 years. Think about the American education system. We tell 18-year-olds to sign their lives away for six-figure student loans, promising them that a degree is a golden ticket to the middle class. So they study, they grind, they graduate with honors, and then they enter a job market where entry-level wages are stagnant, while the cost of a basic apartment in cities like Austin or Charlotte has doubled. The math is broken. You are playing a game where the rules were written for a version of capitalism that no longer exists. Individual effort is no longer a leverage. It is just the entry fee to stay mediocre. The lesson is bitter, but necessary. Working harder in a rigged system doesn't make you a winner. It just makes you a more exhausted loser. And the reason this trap is so effective is because it keeps you focused on your paycheck, while the real wealth is moving at a speed your salary can never touch. To understand why your hard work feels like running underwater, we have to look at the cold mathematical engine driving this inequality. If you want to know why you're struggling, you don't need a life coach. You need a calculator. Thomas Piketty, a man who spent his life staring at the gears of wealth, boiled it down to one terrifying formula. R is greater than G. Let me translate that for you. R is the return on capital. That's the growth of stocks, real estate, and private equity. G is the growth of the economy, which is where your wages come from. In the last 40 years, the S&P 500 has climbed like a rocket, returning nearly 10% annually on average. But your paycheck? Adjusted for inflation, it has been crawling on the ground like a wounded animal. This is the death spiral. Capital, which is money owned by the few, grows at a compound rate. That labor, which is time sold by the many, can never catch. Imagine two cars on a highway. The capital car is a turbocharged Ferrari, fueled by corporate buybacks and tax loopholes. The labor car is a bicycle, and you are the one peddling it. The gap between these two cars isn't just a distance, it's a canyon, and every year, that canyon gets wider. The lesson is simple. You cannot outrun compound interest with a 40-hour work week. If your income only comes from your hands, you are losing the race before you even tie your shoes. But wait, it gets worse. Because while your wages are stagnant, the very ground you stand on is being bought out from under you. The dream of owning a home is being replaced by a permanent rental class. To see the true face of this extinction, we have to look at the crumbling foundation of the American middle class. Back in the 1970s, the American dream wasn't a slogan, it was a reality. A single income from a blue-collar factory job could buy a 3-bedroom house, 2 cars, and put kids through college. That version of America is now a ghost. Today, you have 2-income households, both with master's degrees, and they are still struggling to pay rent. For a 1-bedroom apartment in the last 30 years, home prices in the United States have outpaced wage growth by nearly 300%. But this didn't happen by accident. Enter the new landlords of the world. Giant private equity firms like BlackRock and Vanguard. These aren't people looking for a home to raise a family. These are algorithms with billions of dollars outbidding you for every starter home on the market. They don't want to sell to you. They want to rent the world back to you good forever. When an institution buys a neighborhood, they aren't just buying wood and brick. They are buying your future cash flow. They are turning the land of the free into a land of the FEE, a society where you own nothing, but you pay for everything. The lesson here is chilling. Ownership is the only wall between you and economic slavery. If you don't own the roof over your head or the tools of your trade, you are just a guest in someone else's empire. And as the walls of this empire close in, the very money in your pocket is being systematically drained by the people who control the faucet. Number 4, the Cantillon Effect, the legal heist. Have you ever wondered why the stock market hits record highs? Even when the real economy is screaming in pain, it's not magic. It's a mechanism called the Cantillon Effect. When the Federal Reserve prints trillions of dollars to save the economy, that money doesn't just fall from the sky into your lap. It starts at the source, the faucet. The first people to touch that fresh, new money are the big banks, the hedge funds, and the massive corporations. They get to spend it while prices are still low. They use it to buy up real estate, stocks, and hard assets. But by the time that money trickles down to your paycheck, inflation has already kicked in. The prices of eggs, gas, and rent have already skyrocketed because of the very money the elite just spent. The rich get asset appreciation. You get a higher cost of living. It is a massive, invisible wealth transfer. Before we go deeper into how this machine is breaking society, I have a question for you. Are you tired of being the last one to know how the world actually works? If you want to understand the hidden systems that run our lives, subscribe to The Invisible Driver right now. Don't let them keep you in the dark. Join us and see the world for what it really is. The lesson here is brutal. In a world of constant money printing, holding cash is a slow suicide. Your savings account isn't a safety net. It's a melting ice cube if you are holding paper. While the elite are holding assets, You are paying for their wealth with your purchasing power. This heist is happening in broad daylight. But because it's hidden in balance sheets and economic jargon, no one calls the police. But the consequences are very real, and they are creating a world where your social class is locked in at birth. If you want to see the future of the American middle class, look at South Korea. It is a brutal, high-speed laboratory for everything we just discussed. South Korea has the most educated, most disciplined, and most hard-working youth on the planet. They followed every rule. They spent their childhoods in cram schools, sacrificed their mental health for top-tier degrees, and landed prestigious jobs at giants like Samsung. But there is a term they use over there that should haunt you. The spoon class theory. No matter how brilliant you are, if you were born with a dirt spoon, you are stuck in the dirt. Why? Because of the R is greater than G spiral. On steroids, a young engineer in Seoul can work 16 hours a day, but the price of an apartment in Gangnam rises faster in a single month than that engineer can save in a decade. The meritocracy is dead. When a generation realizes that their sweat will never be enough to buy a home, something inside the culture snaps. The birth rate in South Korea is now the lowest in the world. Young people aren't just quitting their jobs. They are quitting the future. They are refusing to bring children into a world where they will be permanent tenants in an empire they built but will never own. The lesson is a cold shower for all of us. High skills and high education are worthless if the asset prices have already locked you out. A society that prizes capital over labor to this extreme eventually becomes a graveyard of ambition. Values collapse because why play a game that was over before you even walked onto the field? This isn't just a Korean problem. It is a global contagion. And as the middle class evaporates, the very shape of our society is shifting from a stable diamond into a fragile, dangerous hourglass. In the 20th century, society was shaped like a diamond, a tiny peak of the super rich, a small base of the very poor, and a massive, sturdy middle class in the center. That middle was the engine of stability. But today, the diamond is melting. It is turning into an hourglass. The top is expanding, with people who own the algorithms and the capital. The bottom is swelling with a permanent service class. Workers living paycheck to paycheck, gig by gig. But the middle is being squeezed into non-existence. If you are a middle manager, an accountant, or a paralegal, you are standing on a trapdoor. Artificial intelligence isn't just coming for blue-collar jobs anymore. It is coming for the white-collar workers who thought they were safe. AI is the ultimate form of capital. It is an asset that works 24/7, doesn't ask for a raise, and never burns out. When a company replaces 100 managers with one software license, that's another win for R and a final nail in the coffin for G. This creates a phenomenon I call the paralysis of the will, when the gap between the top and the bottom becomes so vast that no amount of effort can bridge it. People stop trying. In China, they call it lying flat. In Japan, it's the hikikomori. In America, it's the quiet resignation of a generation that has realized the social elevator is out of service. The lesson is a warning. A society without a middle class is a society without hope. When the structure is locked, and moving up is no longer an option. The only thing left for the people at the bottom is resentment, but before you surrender to the darkness, you have to understand the invisible walls that are keeping you in this cage, because the system doesn't just want your labor, it wants your soul. Through the heaviest chain ever forged, debt. The system has a problem. If you realize the game is rigged, you might stop playing. To keep you on the treadmill, they need to make sure you can't afford to get off. Their solution? Debt. In America, we don't just have an economy. We have a debt trap disguised as a lifestyle. It starts with student loans. We ask 19-year-olds to sign for $100,000 in debt before they even understand how taxes work. That's not an investment in education. It's a lien on your future labor. Then comes the credit card. The system screams at you to buy the new iPhone, the luxury SUV, the designer clothes. Buy now, pay later. But what you are actually doing is trading your future freedom for a temporary hit of dopamine. Every dollar of interest you pay to a bank is a piece of your life that you'll never get back. You aren't working for yourself anymore. You are working for the interest payments. This is the debt cage. When you are saddled with monthly payments, you lose your power to say no. You can't quit the job you hate. You can't start the business you dream of. You become a modern-day sharecropper, working the land of a corporate lord just to keep your head above water. The lesson is this: debt is the ultimate tool of social control. It turns your labor surplus, the money you should be using to buy assets, into a guaranteed profit for the people who already own the world. They want you exhausted, they want you distracted, but most of all, they want you indebted. The cage is strong, but it's not unbreakable. If you want to stop being the prey, you have to stop thinking like a consumer and start acting like a predator in the world of capital. It's time to talk about how we hack the system. The system has a problem. If you realize the game is rigged, you might stop playing to keep you on the treadmill. They need to make sure you can't afford to get off. Their solution? Debt. In America, we don't just have an economy. We have a debt trap disguised as a lifestyle. It starts with student loans. We ask 19-year-olds to sign for $100,000 in debt before they even understand how taxes work. That's not an investment in education. It's a lien on your future labor. Then comes the credit card. The system screams at you to buy the new iPhone, the luxury SUV, the designer clothes. Buy now, pay later. But what you are actually doing is trading your future freedom for a temporary hit of dopamine. Every dollar of interest you pay to a bank is a piece of your life that you'll never get back. You aren't working for yourself anymore. You are working for the interest payments. This is the debt cage. When you are saddled with monthly payments, you lose your power to say no. You can't quit the job you hate. You can't start the business you dream of. You become a modern-day sharecropper, working the land of a corporate lord just to keep your head above water. The lesson is this: debt is the ultimate tool of social control. It turns your labor surplus, the money you should be using to buy assets, into a guaranteed profit. For the people who already own the world, they want you exhausted, they want you distracted, but most of all, they want you indebted. The cage is strong, but it's not unbreakable. If you want to stop being the prey, you have to stop thinking like a consumer and start acting like a predator. In the world of capital, it's time to talk about how we hack the system. The system has spent billions of dollars on psychological warfare just to make you feel inadequate. They want you to feel that your car is too old, your clothes are too cheap, and your life is too small. Why? Because an insecure person is a perfect consumer. If they can make you care about the opinions of people you don't even like, they can keep you in debt forever. The hack is financial stoicism. It's the realization that every time you buy something to impress others, you are voluntarily putting a shackle on your own wrist. You are buying status. But the cost is your freedom. The elite don't want you to know this, boy. But wealth isn't the stuff you buy. Wealth is the stuff you don't buy. So you can own your time. Stop looking at $1,000 as a new phone. Look at it as a month of freedom in the future. When you stop being a slave to the new, you become a threat to the system. You become dangerous because you can no longer be manipulated by trends or social pressure. I want to pause here and ask you a serious question. Be honest in the comments. If you woke up tomorrow and you didn't have a single debt to pay, and you didn't have to impress anyone, what would you do with your life? I'm reading every response because your answer is the key to your escape. The lesson is simple. Control your desires, or your desires will be used to control you. The ultimate luxury isn't a designer watch. It's the ability to wake up and say, I don't have to be anywhere I don't want to be today. But we are at the end of the road. The trap is laid. The map is in your hands. Now, you have to decide which side of the divide you want to live on. We have reached the end of the map. You now see the gears of the machine. You understand that the R is greater than G spiral is not a mistake. It is a design. The middle class is not disappearing by accident. It is being harvested. The world out there does not owe you a fair fight. The government, the banks, the institutions, they are not coming to save you. In fact, they are counting on your exhaustion. They are betting that you will keep running on that treadmill until your legs give out, just to pay for a life you don't even enjoy. But here is the brutal, beautiful truth. While you cannot change the system, you are the only one who can change your position within it. You have a choice. You can choose to stay a victim, to keep crying about the unfairness of the world while you sink slowly into the dirt, or you can dry your eyes and start playing by the winner's rules. Stop being a battery for someone else's empire. Start building your own. It will be hard. It will require you to live differently, to think differently, and to say no to everything society tells you to want. But on the other side of that sacrifice is the only thing worth having: freedom. The divide is widening. The canyon is opening. Don't wait for a miracle that isn't coming. Start climbing. Now, I am the invisible driver. And now, you know the truth. What you do with it is up to you.